All right. Hello and welcome everyone to our office hours webinar for BrainHQ. We're so glad that you took the time to join us today. My name is Stephanie and I'll be one of your hosts for today's webinar. Now, our goal for the office hour webinar series is to show off a specific feature or two, and then we will open the floor and answer any questions that you might have about those features. Now, today's topic is a deep dive into progress within BrainHQ. So Henry and I will go ahead and walk you through the different metrics available in BrainHQ, and then we will pivot to taking questions from you guys in the audience. So if you have a question at any point during the presentation today, you can click the little Q&A button on the Zoom control panel, and a new window will pop up where you can type in your questions. We will do our best to answer as many questions as we can, but there are a lot more of you in the audience than there are me and Henry. So we probably won't have a chance to answer every question, but fear not. You can send any follow-up questions to our support team, support@brainhq.com, or you can find many answers to common questions on our support site, which you can find at support.brainhq.com. Now, the other thing that I wanted to note is that today's webinar is being recorded and it will get posted to our YouTube channel in the coming days. If you'd like to be notified when that video goes live, head on over to youtube.com/brainhq and subscribe there in order to receive a notification. All right, so brief little ditty about me. Before working at Posit Science, I was a science communicator and docent at a science museum here in San Francisco. In 2014, I started working for Posit Science as a customer delight specialist. I wear quite a few more hats now than I did when I first started a decade ago. But I am still answering questions from users like you all the time. Now, my co-host today is Dr. Henry Monka. Henry, you want to say hi?
Hi, folks, and Stephanie. Thanks for hosting us today. And yes, you do have quite a lot of hats you're taking on here at Posit Science these days, and thank you for it.
Absolutely. Now, most of you probably have already seen Henry in our previous webinars, but in case you need a reminder, Henry earned his PhD in neuroscience at the University of California, San Francisco, where he studied brain plasticity with our co-founder, Dr. Michael Merzenich. He has been running the show here as our CEO of Posit Science since 2011. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on into progress. So when we talk about progress, what does that actually mean? So we like to think of progress as your brain getting stronger over time. It's about building new skills and improving on existing ones. So imagine yourself climbing a mountain. The higher you go, the stronger you are. Now, BrainHQ can metaphorically help you scale that mountain by providing a variety of exercises in order to target different areas of your cognition. Now, BrainHQ offers many ways to track your progress, all the way from big picture up to the nitty-gritty tiny details. So we will explore sort of all these different levels of progress step by step, but I wanted to give you guys a brief overview of the different degrees of progress that are available to you. So first, on the top level, we have overall progress. Going back to that mountain metaphor, this is going to be like your view from the summit. So we'll take a look at metrics over time, from a daily view of your training through the progress tiles, all the way up through metrics displayed on your progress page, like your brain activity quotient or your percentile ranking. Under that, we have category progress. So BrainHQ has 6 different categories to train your brain. Here is where medals start to come into play. We'll delve into medals throughout the presentation, and medals are there to showcase the breadth and depth of your training. Under that, we have exercises. Categories are made up of exercises, like freeze frame or scene crasher that you see here. Medals will also track your progress within each exercise, indicating the quality and quantity of training within an exercise that you've completed. Under that, we have stage progress. So exercises are further divided into stages. This is another degree where medals are awarded in order to recognize your progress step by step. Under that, we have level progress. This refers to your performance on a specific level within an exercise. So this is going to be things like your baseline scores, how many stars you've earned on that level, what your peak performance was. That's all going to be here on this level. And then the smallest scale that we have for metrics is going to be real-time progress. So when we talk about real-time progress, we are specifically referring to the progress bar. Sometimes we call it a challenge meter that you see during your training. That gives you updates in real time as you train in order to give you feedback. All right. So I hope you're ready to learn more about each of these steps. It seems like a lot to cover, but we're going to do our best here. We're going to start from the bottom and then work our way back up to the top for overall progress.
All right. Great
All
overview,
right.
Stephanie. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my demonstration window here where I have a level of Hawkeye queued up and ready to go. Henry, I was hoping that you could talk us through some of the information about the challenge meter. Again, looking at that real-time progress here as I maybe do a little bit of training.
I would be happy to. So, as Stephanie talked about, we're going to start at the simplest, most immediate level of progress, which is what's the real-time progress that you have. So, as you're doing any BrainHQ exercise, in this case Hawkeye, if you look in the upper left, you'll see a star, and you can see how many stars you've earned so far. And right underneath that, you'll usually see a number, 19 turns left. And that means that you, or in this case Stephanie, has got 19 more turns left in Hawkeye. So why don't you give it a run, and why don't you do a few? You focus on the birds and I'll kind of talk through it. Oh, I see you're
Sounds
going
good.
very fast, aren't you? Well, for those of you following along at home, Stephanie's operating Hawkeye at a very high level of performance. So if we look at the top of the screen, you're going to see kind of a gray circle. And then as Stephanie gets these right or wrong, you're going to see those little arrows fill in. So that one she got right. So there's a little green arrow that fills in, and she's going to get that one wrong, and a red arrow fills in. Now, each time she gets two of them right, those two green arrows fill in, and that gray circle is going to move up one level. And that means Hawkeye's gotten a little bit more challenging to push her brain. And if she gets one wrong, as you might have seen, that red arrow is going to fill in, and Hawkeye's going to get a little bit easier. It's going to move back one level of challenge. And you can see that as she's doing this, she's making progress towards her next star. She's got 2 stars already. Let's see if she can get to 3. If she gets this one right, she'll get it. Ladies and gentlemen, she has earned that 3rd star. You see 3 stars now over there on the top left. And you can now see she's making progress towards her 4th star. If she continues to get them right, she's going to earn more stars. So this is a way that you can kind of quickly check as you're doing an exercise, hey, how are you performing? The higher stars you have, the higher level of performance you're engaging in. And you can keep an eye on that challenge meter as it goes up and down to kind of see, hey, is the exercise getting more or less challenging as it adapts to your unique brain? Now, again, I always want to emphasize here that everyone's got their own brain. And hey, some people are going to train at Hawkeye, and they're going to be bouncing around the 2-star level, and that's great. You're working on your brain. Some people will train on Hawkeye and they'll be bouncing around the 5-star level, and that's great. They're working on their brains. The important thing is it's giving you the right level of challenge for your brain, and you can see where you are. Now she's got 2 turns left. Are you going to finish it up for us here?
I sure can.
Okay, there's 1. Now she has 1 turn left. Let's see if she gets that last one and gets her 5th star. Wow, you did it, Stephanie. We're proud of you.
Nailed it.
And so that's the kind of feedback you can get in real time as you're doing an exercise. You can occasionally look up and see how many stars you've earned and how's your challenge meter moving up and down as you get the trials correct and sometimes miss them. And now every exercise is different. Some exercises, if you get 2 right, it goes up a level of challenge. Some of them, it takes 3 right to go up a level of challenge. Some of them, as soon as you get 1 wrong, it's going to get a little bit easier because we want to home in. And some of them, you have to get 2 wrong for it to get a little easier because we want to adapt a little bit more slowly. But in each case, our scientists have designed that algorithm to be most helpful. So that's real-time feedback. Are we ready to move on to the next kind of progress tracking you can do, Stephanie?
Yeah, so a step up from real time is going to be level feedback or level tiles specifically, which you can see here on this page. So BrainHQ will organize exercises into stages and levels are going to be represented by each one of these individual little boxes or tiles. So we can see here, I'm logged into Henry's account, and Henry has done a lot of training on Hawkeye.
I really have.
So let's take a look at stage 3, since we have kind of a good spread of different features of these level tiles that I want to talk about. So let's see here. I want to first draw your attention to the level in the bottom right corner here. So looking here, you can see that Henry has earned 5 stars for this level, which is fantastic. We can tell he has earned 5 stars because all 5 of these stars are filled in with the sweet color. So all of the sweets or categories in BrainHQ are going to be color-coded. Hawkeye is a brain speed exercise. Brain speed is color-coded blue, which is why we see blue stars and blue graphs here. Now, you can see that when he first completed this level, he had set a score of 117 milliseconds. That's going to be what we call his baseline score. That's going to be this number in black here in the bottom left of the tile. Now we can see he practiced this level a couple more times, and then he was able to identify the target bird on screen when it was flashing on screen for only 50 milliseconds, which is going to be his high score here. So that's going to be this number down here in the bottom right corner of this tile. And we can see that he's trained with this level a couple of times. But what happens if you train with a level over and over and over and over again? Well, rather than having sort of a bar graph, we have sort of a gradual graph here. So we can see, for example, in this first level of stage 3, he started out at 1,000 milliseconds, so a second, and then worked his way up over many, many, many repeats up to 50 milliseconds, his high score. Another graph pattern that you might see would be this one next to it. We can see that he, at baseline, was able to respond to birds that were on the screen for 316 milliseconds. And his high score is 178 milliseconds, which is great. But we can see he's trained with this level since then, and his score has kind of dropped off since then. So that could be a thing to look out for if you are interested in making sure that your latest scores are your best scores. So this is one way that you can sort of kind of guide your training a little bit.
Giving me homework right on the webinar, Stephanie. I love it.
I know, putting you on blast. I'm sorry. All right. So going up a step
Well,
further.
I'll just jump in real quickly.
Oh, yeah, please.
What I love about these level tiles, it's just a very quick way to say in a particular exercise and on particular levels, hey, has my performance improved? And you can look at these graphs and, hey, if they're staying steady, practicing more will help your performance improve. And if they're going up, as I guess 5 out of 6 of mine are, then hey, you're doing pretty well. And that can be a nice reassurance to track your progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about
one question
while
just
we're
came
here.
in, and I'm going to call it out real quickly, Stephanie.
Sure.
When we look at each of these tiles, we call them, each of these represents a different level in Hawkeye. And it's important to know, and what that means is that each of these squares, when you click on it, you'll go to a different level of Hawkeye. And that means you'll see different birds, and there'll be different distances out from your center of vision, and there'll be different backgrounds and all these things. And that's why I have a different score on each of them, because some of these levels are easier or harder than others, as the case may be.
Yeah, so like that first level that I trained with was like stage 1, level 1, and we saw sort of those orange birds on the bright blue background. Whereas if we were to take a look at some of these levels here, for example, let's click on this one. Very different birds, very different background, and the birds are pushed out to the periphery. So there are.
I remember it well.
Yeah, for sure. And so that is how some of these levels are grouped together, is actually makes a great segue into this next part, which is stage progress. So stages are groupings of levels with similar stimuli. So like we saw before, like I mentioned, we had the red birds or the orange birds on the bright blue background. And then later on in that stage, you still had the same birds, same background, but they were maybe pushed out to the sides of the screen. Stage 3, and really all the stages in Hawkeye are going to operate in a sort of a similar fashion. You're going to have similar birds on varying backgrounds that get pushed out to the periphery. Now, stages are going to be where we also are introduced to medals for the first time on sort of the base level here. So medals are an award that BrainHQ will give you depending on how many stars you've earned across levels within a stage. So gold medals mean that you've earned an average of 4.5 stars across all levels in a stage. So we can see Henry has earned that for quite a few stages here, stage 3 included. A silver medal means that you've earned an average of 3.5 stars across all levels in the stage. So it looks like if we go down to 6, we can see that here. So Henry has a good mix of 3, 4, and 5 stars here. And if he wants to bump that silver up to a gold medal, he has to earn 3 more stars in this stage. Then following that, we also have a bronze medal, which means that you've earned a minimum average of 2 stars across all levels in a stage. And we can see that here in stage 7. So we have a couple of 1, 2, 3, 4, and even 5 stars all across this stage.
Yep. You can see
So
those
that's
bottom 2 levels I found very challenging.
very, very
And you can
challenging,
see
and
that
I
I
don't blame
also,
you.
you can see from the bar graph, I only done each one of them once. And so very clearly, if I want to get better at that, if I want to increase my stars and then earn a medal for stage 7, I should go back to those bottom 2 levels. I've only done them once, and I should practice on them because once is probably not good enough to rewire my brain fully.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just the score that you get on the level, it's how much you also train with that level. Medals are really a great measure for both quality and quantity, or breadth and depth of training. Now, one example that isn't shown here in Hawkeye, but we can show this in a different exercise, is that if you haven't completed all of the levels within a stage, you will not be eligible to earn a medal for that stage. So it looks like Henry has completed every level at least once in Hawkeye, but there are other exercises, I'm sure, where there's a little bit of gap in training, and that could be a good indication for him to say, hey, what haven't I trained with before? And then he can use that to sort of guide his training. All right, so taking it a step above stage progress, we're going to back up to exercise progress here. So exercises also keep track of medals. So if you want to see how many medals you've earned within a specific exercise, you can see that here from the Explore All Exercises pages. So for example, we were talking about Hawkeye, or showing off Hawkeye, and we can see here the Hawkeye exercise tile shows 10 out of 10 under this sort of bar graph that's listed here. So the first number here indicates how many stages he's earned medals for out of how many total stages there are. And then these 3 different colors denote what kind of medals he has earned across those stages. So we can see of the 10 stages, it looks like 5 or 6 of them are probably gold, and then he's earned a couple silver and a couple of bronze ones here. Now, for exercises where there are stages that have not been completed, or all of the levels within that stage haven't been attained, the bar graph is going to be sort of black and not filled in. So we can see an example of that here within freeze frame, where he's earned 2 of 7 medals for freeze frame.
Yep, long way to go.
Freeze frame's a long one, so I don't blame you. All right, now scrolling up to the next level, we have medals by category. So up at the top of the screen, you're going to see a visual representation of the medals you've earned within each category. So this is all sort of cumulative. As you train with BrainHQ and earn medals, these circles are all gradually going to start to fill in. And once again, you can use this feature to guide your training. Look for categories with blank spaces. That means that there are new stages and levels for you to work on. Or if the circles are filled in, like Henry has here with the intelligence category, you can say, hey, I have a lot of silver in this. Maybe I want to work on bumping those up to gold medals. Another thing that you can do is say Henry did want to work on intelligence. He could click on this intelligence icon, and it'll take him right to the intelligence category where he can make his level selection. All right, so hopefully now you can see how to use medals to sort of help track your progress. How many levels you've trained with, your breadth of levels, and then how high your performance has grown in each level. A bronze medal is more progress than no medal. A silver medal is better than a bronze, and a gold medal shows the most progress of all. All right, so going back to the dashboard, or the main training page, I'm actually going to toss it off to Henry, who is going to talk a little bit about these progress tiles that show up on your dashboard when you do some training.
Fantastic. So this is part of the group of things that Stephanie referred to at the beginning of our webinar around kind of overall or high level progress. And you're going to see these progress tiles each day as you use BrainHQ. So for example, if you use the personal trainer and you train for your target number of levels, at the end it's going to return you back to the dashboard and you'll see these progress tiles. You can also see them if you're using the exercises individually. Anytime within a day that you come back to the dashboard, you can also see these progress tiles. So they give you a great sense of, hey, what have I done today and how much progress have I made? So let's go through each of them kind of one by one. And you can click on them and they'll tell you a little bit more. So on the left, this is the weekly challenge. And about every other week, BrainHQ gives you a special challenge just to give you something specific and interesting to do. So this week is do all exercises in brain speed. So brain speed has about 5 or 6 different exercises in it. And you can finish this challenge if you do at least one level in every exercise in speed. And you can see I've done one of the speed exercises so far. And if I finish all of them, I'll achieve the weekly challenge. So that's a fun thing for me to aim for. If you look at the second progress tile there, it says 4 passed, a total of 602. This is how many levels have I passed today? How many levels have I finished where I've met my goal for how many stars that I want to earn? And you can see that Stephanie is moving through this. You can sort of see the arrows on the left and the right there. That lets you scroll through it. And so you can see I passed a to-do list training level, and I passed a target tracker level, and I passed a mind bender level. I did all those in my personal trainer session. And then I also, I think, passed a Hawkeye level, and that's
This was
thanks to
me.
Stephanie.
You're welcome.
So I got a free one thanks to her. And so you can see that I've passed 4 levels today, and I've passed a total of 602 throughout all of my time at BrainHQ. So again, some feedback around your progress today. Now let's look at moments with the person climbing the mountain there. This represents a way that BrainHQ picks out like exceptional, notable things that you've done today. Like what are some few great things that have happened today? Well, one great thing is that me, and in this case I mean Stephanie, did really well on Hawkeye. You can see she scored in the top 10% of people doing Hawkeye. That means if 100 people did Hawkeye today, and definitely 100 people have done Hawkeye today, Stephanie scored better than 90 of them. And let's scroll around here. You can see that I earned a best moment. I actually finished my 1,925th level today. So that's something worth celebrating. That's quite a lot of brain training. If you click on the next one, you can see that I've trained 3 days in a row. I'm on a streak, so that's nice. I'd like to keep building that streak. And I think that might be all of my moments, unless there's, a few other ones. I actually, on my own, was in the top 15th percentile when I did Mindbender. And I think I did a great job on Target Tracker, top 1%.
Top 1%.
So pretty good about my Target Tracker performance today. So moments are a nice way of celebrating certain milestones that have happened as well. The next progress tile there is stars, and you can see it's telling me that I earned 37 stars today, and I can see in little font that I've earned a total of 7,391, which is a lot of stars. And then it shows you where did I earn them. So I earned 14 stars in memory because I did to-do list training. I earned 5 stars in brain speed thanks to Stephanie doing Hawkeye. And you can see I didn't do any people skill exercises and I didn't do any navigation exercises, so I didn't earn any stars in those. And then finally, on the far right there, you can see I have I've done 8 levels today, and I finished a personal trainer session, so it says complete. And you can see that circle is kind of filling in step by step. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. And that means that I'm about 2/3 of the way through my total goal for training this week. And so if I train several more times, that whole circle will close, and that's going to tell me I've achieved my goal. I've trained my target level of levels this week, which I think in my case is 24. And as Stephanie shows, you can expand that. It actually shows you a complete weekly calendar. You can see that, for example, 2 weeks ago, I trained every single day. Then last week, I was traveling. I only trained 3 days, and I didn't train that much. I have these little small dots. And then this week so far, I've trained every day, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I did the most levels, you can see from that big circle on Wednesday. So this is a nice way as well to track your progress as you are training regularly throughout the week. So those are progress tiles, and what's important to know is you'll see them each day. If I come back tomorrow and I haven't trained yet tomorrow, it won't show me any, or it might just show me the number of levels I have to do. And so they reset at the end of each day. So they're a nice way to track your progress each day and make sure you're achieving your goals. And I think that's Stephanie then for some overall measures, am I right?
Yeah, so actually, Henry, I wanted to ask you a question. What if instead of like a daily measure of your progress, you wanted a more broad measure, something that sums up all across all exercises and all levels? I believe the best way to do that would be BrainHQ, right?
That's exactly right. Our scientists have developed a great measure here called BrainHQ, and for some reason this has been taking a little while to load on my account, maybe because I've done so much training, but I promise it's going to pop up in just a minute here. And what we're going
There
to
we go.
see is a line on the top that represents my BrainHQ, and then kind of a calendar on the bottom that shows my training. Let's start with the calendar, because that's important to understand the line. So the training calendar, thanks for blowing that up, Stephanie.
Yeah.
You read it from top to bottom. S is Sunday, M is Monday, T is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so each column is a week. And you can see that at the beginning here, I was busy and I really wasn't doing very much brain training. And then over towards the right, I dived back into BrainHQ, and each of those squares, how dark the purple is, shows how much training that I did. And you can see I've done a lot of training, and on some days I've done quite a bit. So what our scientists do is they turn that into this measure called BrainHQ. And what is BrainHQ? Well, BrainHQ is meant to be a measure of what scientists call cognitive reserve. Now, there's been a lot of thinking about how the brain works over the past 20 years. And one notion that scientists have come up with is we all have a certain amount of cognitive reserve. And you can think of that as, well, how much resilience has your brain built up or lost as a result of everything that's happened to you in your life? Right? Let's say you've led a very lucky life, right? Let's say you had a happy childhood and you ate lots of nutritious food and you got to go to a great school and learn a lot and you had a really interesting job and you challenged your brain all throughout your life. You've built up a lot of brain reserve. You've built up a lot of resilience in your brain. You have a strong, healthy brain, right? But let's say maybe you weren't quite that lucky, right? Maybe you had some of those advantages, but maybe you fell off your bike in your 20s and you had a brain injury that you bounced back from. Maybe you just have some bad genetics that no fault of yours, just sort of bad luck of the draw, and your brain just isn't quite as resilient as it might be. Or maybe you're just getting older, like every single one of us are, right? And your brain is kind of losing some resilience over time. Well, you might have less brain resilience as a result of that. And scientists think of this like a gas tank, right? How much gas have you put in the tank as a result of the lucky genes you have or the good habits you've had over your life? And well, hey, how much gas has leaked out of the tank because of some bad luck that you've had, like a head injury or maybe, again, just naturally all of us getting older. So depending on how much brain reserve you have, that actually kind of predicts your risk of going on to Alzheimer's and dementia over time. If you have a lot of brain reserve, it might take you a long time before you get a diagnosis of dementia. Whereas if you have lower brain reserve, well, you're at higher risk for going on to that diagnosis a little bit earlier. So what our scientists did is they took kind of the math of how much training you're doing in BrainHQ, how many new levels are you doing, how's your performance improving in those levels, and turn it into a graph that shows, well, you building your brain reserve. So you can see that when I wasn't training here in the early stages of these weeks, my brain reserve goes down a little bit day after day, kind of like a little bit of gas is just leaking out of my tank as time goes on. Nothing dramatic, nothing to go see your doctor about, but hey, a reminder that I should probably be leading a more brain healthy life. And then as I start to do my brain training over here on the right, you can see my BrainHQ score goes up, and that represents the benefit of training on all those levels and improving on my score to improving my overall brain resilience and my brain health and my brain reserve. So this is a nice way to just step back and say, hey, what is the benefit that all of the brain training that I've been doing on BrainHQ has accrued to me? And if you're like me and you've taken a break for a little while and you'll see it going down a bit, well, good reason to come back and boost it back up again. Thanks.
All right, awesome. Let me go ahead and zoom back out to normal size here. And let's make our way over to the percentile tab within the progress page. So percentiles are something that we get a lot of questions about. So I definitely wanted to dedicate some of the presentation today to talking about percentiles. So some people, not everybody, but some people want to see where they sit compared to other people. And so that's what the percentile analysis is here for. So your percentile score shows you how your performance compares to other people using BrainHQ. And these rankings are going to be age adjusted unless otherwise noted. So for example, if you were born in 1970, then you are going to be ranked here against other people that were born in 1970 when looking at your percentile, unless it's otherwise noted. Now, the way that percentiles work is that each time you complete a level, BrainHQ makes a very precise calculation of how you did relative to everybody else your age who also completed that level. Now, these scores are not like letter grades in school. This is the thing that people seem to struggle with the most. And if there's like a big takeaway about percentiles, it's this. Um, if your percentile score is 50, for example, it doesn't mean that you failed at a level. It doesn't mean that you got 50% wrong. It means that you are scoring better than 50% of users who have also completed that level. Um, so we can see here that Henry's overall percentile is 76. So we can see that up here in this top right corner, and we can also see it here in this sort of beautiful graphic. Now, on the left side of the screen, we can see his percentile overviews, and I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit again, just to make it a little bit easier to look at. So BrainHQ is going to show you how much you've improved over time. So we can see here that Henry has improved an average of 18 percentile ranks over his baseline score. So when he first started training with BrainHQ, which is fantastic. We can also see that information broken out by suite specifically. So we can see that he has earned 20 percentile ranks in attention over time, 14 over brain speed, so on and so forth here. Now, there is actually a tool to drill down even further if you are interested in using this as a way to sort of guide your training. So going back to this color wheel, it's sort of broken down into different sections here. So the inner circle with these larger wedges is going to show you your average percentile across exercises within a specific category. So again, the color coding comes into play here. Green is attention, blue is brain speed, pink is memory, so on and so forth. Now, let's find let's go to memory here. So I'm hovering over that and we can see memory 70th percentile is going to be listed up here. Now, when I hover over one of these lighter pink areas, we can see that the specific exercise that alludes to is going to appear at the top there, and it's going to tell you what your percentile is for that particular exercise. So we can see here that Henry's percentile for mind's eye is only the 48th percentile, which is fantastic, but it's not as high as some of the other exercises in this category.
And that gets to
So
what you were saying, 48th percentile. I wouldn't want anyone to think that means I've scored an F on this, that I'm terrible at mind's eye. In fact, a 48th percentile means that if 100 people have done mind's eye, I'm better than 48 of them, which is to say I'm right about average. And hey, maybe that's fine. Maybe I'd like to do a little better and I should go in and practice some mind's eye training.
yeah, absolutely. And so we can also see that the darker the wedge color, the higher the percentile is. So that's going to be similar across when you look at like your stars earned map and your levels complete map as well. The darker the color, the either the higher the score is or the more times you've trained with it. So we can see syllable stacks, for example, it's a darker wedge color and he's at the 75th percentile for syllable stacks. So say he did want to go and train with Mind's Eye and maybe try and bump up some of those scores. He could click on this wedge and then it will automatically take him to Mind's Eye for a level selection. All right, so I think that's going to bring us to the end of our exploration of BrainHQ progress tracking for now, or at least the demonstration portion. We've covered a ton of ground, from the big picture overall progress to the real-time feedback you see within each exercise, that nitty-gritty small scale view. Now, another thing that I wanted to say is that BrainHQ training and brain health training in general is designed to be a journey, one where you're constantly challenged and you are working to strengthen your cognitive skills. So by tracking your progress across these different degrees, hopefully you can stay motivated. It'll help you celebrate your achievements. And over time, you'll witness the incredible power of brain training. All right, so let's go ahead and start taking some questions.
We've had all kinds of interesting questions, and our friend Mitchell has been diligently answering quite a few of them as they've come in.
Oh
And
my gosh, Mitchell, you're on it, my guy.
And I tackled a few as well as you were talking, if that's okay, Stephanie.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
there's probably some interesting ones that we should take. So I see one right at the end, and this comes up a lot, and we probably should speak to it. One of our attendees asks, "Hey, is this progress information available on cell phones?" So Stephanie, if you do Brain HQ on a phone, which of these progress things can you see, and are there any of them that are only available on the web?
Yeah, so the progress tab is going to be what's available on the web. That's not going to be available on phones or tablets at this time. There just isn't quite enough real estate on your screen to make that pretty and visible and understandable. But you can see from the Explore page, the Explore page here and on the apps are going to be pretty similar. So you are, I believe, going to see the medals by category. And then you are also going to see the stage and level progress metrics as well.
Yep.
And of course, when you're training, you do get the challenge meter, so you get the real-time feedback.
Exactly, exactly. And certainly on cell phones, those progress tiles as you finish each day are available, and I think that's really a wonderful way to track your progress right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, people are starting to ask quite a lot of questions now. Let's see if we select a few other ones here. I guess a couple people have asked, hey, for those percentile scores that you showed, if you don't mind taking us back to that for a moment,
Sure.
Stephanie. If someone, in my case, you're right, I think you told me I was at the 48th percentile for that mind's eye exercise.
Mhm.
Who am I being compared to exactly?
Yeah. Brain HQ on your profile page, it asks you for your year of birth. And so that is going to make sure that when Brain HQ is calculating percentiles, all of them are going to be age adjusted. So when we look at Mind's Eye and it says 48th percentile, it means that it is comparing your scores to everybody else who was born the same year as you, and then it will rank you accordingly compared to other people's scores.
Yep, that's right. I'll expand on that slightly. It compares you to everyone that's within about 10 years of your birth age. Not exactly,
Is it? Okay.
but a certain sort of little breadth around that. But it is true that it compares you to everyone who's done Brain HQ who's around that age, and so hey, that's all kinds of people, right? Some people your age, maybe they won the world's memory championship last year, and some people your age, maybe they're recovering from a brain injury or something. So you really are compared to all kinds of people. Conversely, your brain is unique. I think someone in here asked, "Hey, when you're comparing these percentiles, do you take into the fact that maybe I have hearing loss, or do you take into effect the fact that maybe I've had a head injury?" And the answer to that briefly is actually, no, particularly right now, right? If you have hearing loss, well, you might score a little bit lower on the on exercises related to hearing. Or if you are working to recover from a head injury, first of all, God bless you. That is hard work, and we're happy to be if we can be of help with that. But it also means your percentile scores might be a bit lower than other people who are your age. And hey, that's okay, right? Again, I wouldn't want anyone to look at this and say, hey, I got a 20th percentile, or in my case, a 48th percentile, and hey, that means there's something wrong with my brain. In all cases, what it represents is, hey, here's where your brain is now, and hey, training on Brain HQ can help make it better. So frankly, it doesn't really matter if you're bouncing back from a head injury, or let's say you're a winning quarterback for the NFL. Wherever you are, hey, you should work on helping your brain get better, and that's what Brain HQ has helped you to do. And these are numbers that can help you track that progress.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're on this page, Catherine had asked, where are you seeing the 48th percentile number? So that's going to be updated here. Whenever you hover over any of these wedges, this is where it gets updated.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And
thank
then
you for the
someone else
question.
asked, hey, I've bought Brain HQ for other people I know, and Brain HQ, you can give it as a gift. You can add family members to your Brain HQ account. Hey, does each person track to my year of birth, or does each person enter their own year of birth? And that's a great question. Brain HQ keeps each person's information private to them. So, let's say you were born in 1950 and you gave it as a gift to someone. They have their own Brain HQ account. They're going to put in their own year of birth, and if they were born in 1930 or 1980, they're going to get data that's relevant to their own year of birth, and they're not going to see your year of birth. In fact, they're not going to know anything about how you're doing in Brain HQ whatsoever. So, great question. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, let's see. If I manually, okay, this is a question for Mick, and we do get this question a lot, so I do want to take a second to answer it. If I manually select exercises rather than using the personal trainer, will the progress I make be factored into the selection the personal trainer will make the next time I train? Yes, absolutely. So all training that you do is going to be saved to your profile, and every time the personal trainer creates that schedule of exercises for you, or that schedule of levels for you, it will take that into account. So, for example, if you did a bunch of training with target tracker, the personal trainer is going to see that. And then instead of giving you maybe the level it would have before you did all that intense training, it'll give you a more advanced level of target tracker, or it might move you on from that exercise entirely. So great question. Thank you, Mick.
Super. Well, I'm seeing a lot of questions here, and let's see. I saw one that basically said, hey, can you show me where to find medals? I guess we talked about them a lot, but starting from this dashboard screen, can you just sort of walk through and tell us the clicks that are required so someone can look at their medals?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are medals viewable at sort of those three of those different levels that we had talked about. So if we click on Explore All Exercises, we have medals by category. So this shows you how many medals you've earned per category and sort of in what combination of medals you've earned. So like Henry has a bunch of gold stars in navigation and then some blank ones. And then in brain speed, he has gold, silver, and bronze medals. Now, if you want to see medals per exercise, what you could do, I'm going to keep going back to Hawkeye here. You can see there's this loading bar with the 10 out of 10 indicating that he's completed 10 of the stages within Hawkeye. But if you want to see the specifics of how many medals are gold versus silver versus bronze, you can click on Hawkeye, and then that's going to be shown here on this page. So we can see he's earned 6 gold, 2 silver, and 2 bronze. And if we want to see exactly what stages those levels were earned in, we can do that here. So we can see these numbers are highlighted, or they have the sort of the ring around them with the corresponding medal color. So like stages 1 through 5 and then 8 are going to be gold. If we click on stage 6, we can see that this is going to be the silver medal. 7 is going to be the bronze medal here. So those are the different sort of degrees that you can see those medals presented in.
Super. So many good questions here. You got one you like, Stephanie?
Interesting question here. Dick is asking, does anybody score in the 10th percentile? Yes. Percentiles.
About 10% of people. That's how that
10%
works
of
out.
people.
Yep. Now, if you have 100 people do an exercise, kind of the way the math works is that 10% of them are going to store at the 10th percentile. And what that means is, hey, there are going to be 10 people who struggle with the exercise and find that it's challenging for them. And again, that's okay, right? Those are exactly the kind of people that I want to keep training on the exercise, and let's help boost up their brain function and their brain performance around exactly what that exercise is tackling.
Yep. Percentiles, I will also say, can get tricky when a lot of people earn the same score, which happens either, it happens a lot with new users, which is why we generally recommend not looking at your percentile page for the first couple of training sessions. And that's because a lot of the earlier levels in BrainHQ, a lot of people have trained with them, and a lot of people have gone back and retrained with them and retrained with them. And so their scores are generally pretty good on those earlier levels. And so when everybody scores well, that actually kind of brings the percentile ranking down. So that's another reason why sometimes we like to urge people to look more towards your BrainHQ than your percentile.
Here's an interesting one, Stephanie. Someone asks, I have 4 gold medals. Can I reset them? So first of all, congratulations. We got 4 gold medals across some exercises or within one exercise. That means you've done a bunch of training and you've scored pretty well on them, and that's wonderful. Right now, there's not a way to reset an individual medal, right? It really just kind of looks at your entire history of progress. If at some point you do want to reset all of your Brain HQ progress, right? Maybe you've taken a break for a while and you just want to start from scratch. You don't generally have to do that. Brain HQ is adaptive and you can just keep going and it will train your brain. But if you just want to kind of start with a clean slate, then you can just email us at support@brainhq.com. And, Stephanie, you or one of your team members will confirm that that's really what you do, and they can wipe your account so you can start from scratch. Again, we don't necessarily encourage people to do that, but if you've been away for a while and you really just want to start from scratch, that's definitely something we can help you with.
Yeah. I missed this question earlier from John when we were on the percentile page, so I'm going to go ahead and head back there. John was asking, what does the number 54 in the black circle mean? So 54 is
What does that mean, Stephanie?
so it relates again to your age adjusted scores. So Henry has a year in his profile that clocks him as being 54 at some point this year.
That's exactly right. Actually, my birthday was just a week ago, so I just turned 54.
Oh my gosh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Makes sense with all the traveling and stuff last week too. Congratulations.
That's exactly right. Thank you.
So the circle, the 54 in the circle is the age that BrainHQ is clocking Henry at based on his birth year. But what you can do actually, this is a little fun thing that I like to do. If I'm having a bad training day and I want to feel better about myself, I will bring this number up, and then it's suddenly going to compare all of my percentile scores to people that are 100 years old using BrainHQ. But if there's a day inversely where, I feel like I've been pretty good, but I want to kind of humble myself or maybe motivate myself a little bit more, I can bring this number down and then compare my scores to, BrainHQ users that are in their 20s. So we can see how our percentile ranking changes compared to different age groups within BrainHQ using this slider feature.
Exactly. Great question.
Ray has a question that, Henry, I think I'm going to toss to you.
Super.
Regarding the percentile calculation, does that happen immediately, or do you have to have a certain number of medals or stars or levels completed in order for percentiles to make a calculation?
That's a good question. It does happen immediately. As soon as a person does one level in exercise, of course, BrainHQ knows their percentile score within that single level of that single exercises. As Stephanie indicated, this is why often we encourage people who are new to BrainHQ not to focus too much on the percentiles at first, because it's very easy to, for example, do a first level in BrainHQ when you're brand new, and maybe you're great at it. You get the 80th percentile. And then the next level just throws you a curveball because you're not used to it, and you get the 40th percentile. All of a sudden, it looks like you started at the 80th percentile, and now your performance is the average of 40 and 80. Your performance looks like it's the 60th percentile, and people sometimes email Stephanie and your team, and they say, hey, how did my scores go down? And the answer is, hey, when you've just done a few levels of BrainHQ, the percentile scores are going to bounce around a little bit as BrainHQ gets a better estimate of your performance. And so we don't worry about them too much for those first few sessions. But it does calculate it at the end of every session to answer that question. So, yep, great question.
And another one about percentiles. The percentiles, percentiles for age, are they just based on the specific day of training, or is this overall? This is going to be your overall training. So every level that you have ever completed within BrainHQ gets factored into the percentile rankings.
Yep, that's right. And it's worth calling out a few other aspects about those percentiles, just so we're clear about them. You're looking at my scores right now. The percentiles don't reflect how recently you've trained, right? It shows, for example, that I've improved by 20 percentile points in attention, which is shown in green in the upper left there. But it's going to show that even if I haven't trained in attention for a long time. They really kind of, in that sense, represent, as Stephanie indicated, a global measure of your total progress over time. But that means they don't necessarily reflect, how you're doing today precisely, because of course maybe you haven't trained in attention for a while. So that's just an important thing to know about the percentiles. That's why the BrainHQ score that Stephanie showed earlier. Can we go back to that?
Yep.
One nice thing about the BrainHQ score, it's going to take a long time to load again. Fantastic.
Sorry.
One nice thing about the BrainHQ score is, it's a little bit more sensitive to time. It's a global measure, so it's not trying to say anything specific about attention versus memory. It's just your overall cognitive reserve. But it does show us that over time, if you're not training, that cognitive reserve is going down a bit. And of course, it's showing that it goes up as we continue to train. So if you're interested in something that's more sensitive to, hey, how much did I gain yesterday, or what have I benefited from this week, the BrainHQ score is really a more helpful one.
Yeah, I think that also partially answers Barry's question that just came in a minute ago. Barry says the percentile rankings show your progress relative to the constantly fluctuating population of other users. Is there a way to see your progress on some kind of absolute or objective basis? And I think the answer to that would be BrainHQ.
Yeah, that's right. BrainEQ is
To
a
an
great
extent.
way to do it. I'll dig into the question just a little bit more, though. It is true that as the person who asked the question indicates, if we calculate your percentile scores in, let's say, 2020, we have a certain number of users and a certain distribution of scores. And if we look again at 2024, if our user base has changed in some significant way, then your percentile score could be different. That is in fact true. We only update the percentile scores from time to time. So I wouldn't want you to think that the comparison population is changing every single day. Certainly we have more BrainHQ users every day, so that's very exciting. But we don't bring them into that percentile score calculation except for every now and then. And we usually make an announcement when that happens so that we want people to know, hey, your scores may shift a little bit, and that's because we're comparing you to a broader data set. But that's not happening on a day-to-day basis.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that, Henry.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. So many great questions here. Someone asked the question about BrainHQ, and this is a great question. They're asking, hey, you've sort of talked about how using the personal trainer improves your BrainHQ. If you want some variety and you want to switch around in the exercises, if I do individual levels on individual exercises, does that contribute to my BrainHQ as well? And the answer is absolutely yes. BrainHQ, you get BrainHQ points and you increase them as you do the exercises in any way, whether it's the personal trainer or whether it's the daily spark or whether it's individual exercises, they all count. And in fact, that's true for all of these progress measures. If you go back to those progress tiles for a minute, can you go back to the dashboard, Stephanie?
Yeah.
These progress tiles that we saw, these today, they reflect both the fact that I did a whole personal trainer session this morning, but they also reflect the fact that Stephanie did that Hawkeye level for me. So these measures of progress, again, they capture everything that you've done today. So, great question.
Yeah. Jane has an interesting question. If I've earned a gold medal and then return to work with a level in that stage, is it safe to assume that I'm still developing brain strength? Yeah, I would say that is probably a good thing to assume. Getting gold is great, but also the repetition of levels and making sure that you are sort of maintaining that level is also an important sort of prong to that approach.
Yep, you're exactly right, Stephanie. And think about it like physical exercise. Maybe you're the kind of person who likes to go out and walk for 20 minutes a day. Hey, just because you've done that walk before for 20 minutes yesterday, hey, it's perfectly good idea to go ahead and do it again today, right? That's going to continue to give you physical exercise. That's good for your heart and good for your physical health. Returning to an exercise you've done quite well at it and training some more at it is helpful as well. Now, that being said, I wouldn't want anyone to think that they should just keep doing the first level of Hawkeye for the rest of their life. There's something that's particularly great about, expanding and going through the levels and trying out the different, configurations and trying new exercises. Those are all good. But going back to a level you've done well at and showing BrainHQ you're continued good at it is also quite helpful.
All right. Kyla has a interesting question here. Is there a way to remove a level if somebody accidentally used your BrainHQ account instead of theirs? So our customer delight team does not have a way to wipe progress from specific levels in BrainHQ. We have sort of a like a full wipe of the account. So if you are early on in your brain training program, if you're early on in your training with BrainHQ and you maybe only have 2 or 3 levels completed and somebody has trained on a level, it's probably not a huge deal to go ahead and just wipe all of those levels because you don't have that much training to sort of make up for. But we really, really hesitate to do that for people that have been training with BrainHQ for a while and have a lot of progress sort of saved up on their account already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your account with them. And hey, there's a variety of helpful ways we have to make sure that they can get training on their own account properly.
Yes.
So let's see.
I do have a request from Dorothy to show where to find the different graphs because I was going through them kind of quickly to try and hurry through the presentation so that way we had enough time for questions. So let me go through sort of the different stages again. So if we talk about overall progress, so remember the outline at the beginning, that big pink circle, that is going to be the progress that's here on your dashboard or features that are shown here in the progress page. So your days trained is also going to be your AQ graph. Stars earned and levels complete are pretty self-explanatory, but if you have questions, let us know. The final tab over here is percentile. Now, if we wanted to drill down, we could go back to the training page and then click on Explore All Exercises. This is where we're going to see the category medals. This is where we're going to see the exercise medals. And then if we click on one of these levels, I'll use Hawkeye again, we can see how many medals of each kind has been earned. And then if we click on the exercise next button here, we can see all of the information on the level tiles for each individual level. So hopefully that gives you the sort of top-down overview that you were looking for. Sorry for the speed earlier.
And actually, do you mind going back to that screen? Because I see another question we can answer while you're on that
Sure.
screen. Someone asked, hey, should I complete every tile before I move up a stage? So let's say you're doing BrainHQ again with individual exercises here. Let's forget about the personal trainer for a moment. How should you move through these tiles to track your progress? And generally, we do recommend that you do them one stage at a time. So, you're showing stage 1 right now. If you hadn't done either of these yet, they would be empty. And we would recommend, hey, do both of the ones in stage 1 before you do any one in stage 2. And then, you kind of have a decision to make, and that's okay. You're doing the exercises individually, not in the personal trainer. You're allowed to make some decisions and have some initiative. Some people in each stage like to try and make sure they get to, let's say, a silver or even a gold medal before they go on to the next stage. And that's a great way to do it. They want to practice on those levels and really try and get as high as they can. Other people, hey, they just want to do every level in the stage. Usually you'll earn a bronze medal if you do that. And that's enough for them, right? They want to then go on to the next stage and keep exploring. And I want to emphasize that both those mechanisms are just fine, right? It is fine to explore the exercise and get bronze medals in each and just try to see all the levels. It's also very fine to explore the exercise and try and get to a silver or a gold before you go on in the stages. What I generally would not recommend is just sort of doing random levels within the exercise. If you do the first one and then you skip ahead to stage 7 and you pick the fourth one in stage 7, first of all, it's going to be very challenging. The harder stages do generally come later, and so your brain's going to get kind of that a bit of a abrupt shock, and you might find it very challenging. And then, as Stephanie said, practice is really important, and so it's nice to go through them in a step-by-step way and repeat each one a few times to give your brain the practice that it needs. So, great question.
All right.
Do we have time for one more question, do you think?
One last quick question. So going back to the progress tiles here, we mentioned that these update daily. How is the day defined in our system? Is it based on time zone, our time zone, the user's time zone? Henry, do you have an answer for that?
It is generally in your time zone. So, when you open your web browser or you open your phone, I'm in San Francisco and it knows I'm in San Francisco. But, if you're on the East Coast, it knows you're on the East Coast. If you're in Brazil, it knows you're in Brazil. And so that's why it's generally pretty accurate about showing the ones you've done today. That being said, when you work in computers for very long, you find out that time is a much more nebulous and confusing concept than you might think. And it does happen from time to time that people write us and they tell us that, hey, I didn't train today, but it shows that I've done some levels, or I just trained a little while ago and all of a sudden they're all gone. And that's usually because the computer's getting a little bit mixed up about what time it is. If it happens once, I recommend not worrying about it very much. If it happens to you several times, email us at support@brainhq.com and we will look into it. Historically, when we've done that, we usually write people back and say, hey, there's something a little bit funny happening with your time zone on your laptop. But we're always happy to look into it if something like that happens. But yeah, it is based on your time zone in general. And it's kind of expecting that you're going to train once a day, and that when you train, most of the levels you'll do kind of close together in time. If you train a little bit in the morning and then 18 hours later you train a little bit late at night, it's possible BrainHQ is going to get a little bit mixed up about which day it is. Good for you if you're doing that, I should say. But yeah, it wouldn't be surprising to me if BrainHQ got a little bit mixed up about what day it is if you have those kinds of training schedules. So,
All
okay.
right. Yeah, I was going to
Oh,
say
I'm
it
sorry.
is
There's
the top of
one
the
more
hour.
question I feel
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
have to answer because this does come up. Someone is saying, hey, my BrainHQ is a certain score, and then it went down a little bit today. Why did it go down today? Can you go back to BrainHQ for a moment, even though it takes a little while to open on my account here? Your BrainHQ goes down each day a bit because the training that you did in the past slowly wears off, right? And so even if you train a little bit today, your BrainHQ score might still go down a little bit because you didn't train quite enough today to make up for the training that wore off from all the training you've done in the past. So if you want to make sure your BrainHQ goes up today, just train a few more levels. If you're done with the personal trainer, but your BrainHQ is still down a little bit, again, because you've done some good training today, but older training is wearing off, just go into the individual exercises and pick an exercise you like and do a level or two of it, and that'll boost it right back up. That's what I typically do. So anyway, that's what it's trying to show you. Again, like that gas tank where we're adding gas to it by doing brain training, but that gas tank is leaking a little bit because time goes on. We just have to make sure that what we add today is somewhat more than what is kind of leaked out over time. I hope that's helpful and that makes sense. Okay, Stephanie?
Yeah, so it is the top of the hour and actually a little bit past that. So thank you everybody for tuning in and sticking with us. And for joining us for this webinar on understanding progress within BrainHQ. So a couple of upcoming things I wanted to note is that next month on June 12th, we are going to be having a Brain Health Academy webinar that's going to be hosted by myself and Tom Van Vliet, and it's going to be technology in the brain. And then the next office hours webinar will be July 17th, and that's going to be a challenge on webinar. So we'll demo some of the more difficult exercises and then take requests for live demos for other exercises as well from the audience. Other than that, I think that's all the information that I have to share right now. But Henry, do you have any parting words for our wonderful audience today?
No, thanks everyone for coming and spending the hour with us. I hope this is helpful and shows you how you can use all these tools to see how you're progressing in BrainHQ. And the most important thing is to keep at it, just like anything we do that's good for our body. Keeping at your brain training is good for your brain. So thanks for coming. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at support@BrainHQ. Happy brain training, everyone.
Happy brain training.